Huh? What's this? What is this?
It's time to stop!
Okay, so for the last few days I've been working on some videos. One in particular was an analysis for the Five Nights at Freddy's Sister Location Trailer 1 that I basically made impulsively after the trailer came out, and I'm not proud of it. I wrote a script and everything, but I simply refuse to stand by a game that is literally a carbon copy of its predecessors with some polish. I didn't realize until post-editing I don't want to release this video and call it my own. So, I'm going to be using some clips from the video, so the editing doesn't go to waste, and explaining why they're either right or contradicting my current opinion. I'm also not going to be relying on a script as much to try to stay as genuine as possible. No, but seriously, I'm going to try to be as unbiased as possible, and I'm going to put my opinion on the internet. Might as well put that intro to good use. Let's go! Before I say anything, I should probably mention that I don't hate Five Nights at Freddy's. Yes, I do, and I'll tell you why. So, I should have said I don't hate the first, 2 games. But really, at this point, I hate this franchise. I am sick of seeing Five Nights at Freddy's everywhere. When I first saw this game, I thought, hey, it has potential, is a good idea. I started to notice it was getting really popular at a really fast rate. It eventually led to an extremely successful indie franchise that was taking advantage of as an opportunity to milk it out for what it's worth. You think Smike is milking out the FNAF franchise? Look at Scott Cawthon himself. We're gonna have 10 more FNAF games by the end of the week. Get ready, kids. As of now, there are currently 4 video games, a movie, a novel, and so much merchandise. We did not need another Five Nights at Freddy's game, but the fans were hungry for it, and so was Scott's wallet, so of course here it is. I'm not going to talk about the fandom in this episode, but there are things to it that exists, and in the masses, constantly theorizing over things that Scott probably made up as he went. Like, seriously, after the second Five Nights at Freddy's, I cannot be the only one who was struggling to put this together. After a while, I just stopped caring, and I think Scott did too. It's not that hard to add subliminal messages to your game and connect them to a super complicated story. I just think it needs to stop. Even Markiplier, the proclaimed king of Five Nights at Freddy's, said this series should stop.
End of the game. That is the end of Five Nights at Freddy's as far as I know. I don't even think that I want there to be any more Five Nights at Freddy's after this. Five Nights at Freddy's no longer has the haunted animatronics that made it the game that it is. These animatronics have finally been laid to rest.
It's time to stop. I also have to say, this looks the most cinematic I've ever seen from a FNAF game. To be honest, I'm really bloody impressed. Alright, yes, this trailer looks fantastic graphics-wise. It looks pretty great in comparison to the other games. However, I feel like these talents should have been put outside of the Five Nights at Freddy's universe. It is already milked out to the max and does not need to be even more saturated by yet another location, which complicates this confusing timeline even more. Scott could have used these talents and whatever production used in this game to make something that wasn't FNAF. I mean, I understand branding and all that, but this is kind of going too far. You're essentially doing a mistake that Banjo-Kazooie, Nuts and Bolts did. Slapping a familiar name on something that could be a standalone game, and a pretty good one too. The reviews weren't bad, necessarily, but did it have to be Banjo-Kazooie? Absolutely not. The mechanics of the game are probably going to be very similar to the other Five Nights at Freddy's games. There will probably be jump scares, it will probably be the same formula, keep an eye out for certain animatronics and other functions, and don't die before 6 AM. The trailer is pretty cool looking, but it doesn't justify slapping Freddy's name on the lore just so the FNAF fans come running. Like, hear me out. I bought and played all of the Five Nights at Freddy's games with my money. I bought these, I played them, and I've played them all for a good amount of time too, so I kinda know what I'm talking about. And I do not regret buying the first game. I still think it is a very good example of a horror game made by one person. You know the story, right? The reason that Scott made this game. Apparently he's been in the game developing business long before FNAF, making like Catholic games and stuff. Then after a pretty large library of games, he made this weird one called Chipper and Sons Lumber Co. And he got this review that the game looked like creepy animatronic animals or something. So he took advantage of that and he made Five Nights at Freddy's. Now, do you think Scott still thinks about that review nowadays? Or do you think he's just doing this to please the fans? That's a rhetorical question. Like, whether or not you like it, this is another Five Nights at Freddy's game. This game has no doubt been polished, and it looks good, and it serves the right to be a FNAF game. But hopefully it is the last. I am not buying this one, I promise. And for all we know, it might not even look like this, and that brings me to my next point. Don't forget the first FNAF trailer was pretty much entirely cinematic. Yeah, it looks poorly made in comparison to this one, but again, none of those cinematics made it into the game. It's very possible this really cool trailer could just be an attempt at hype for a game that might literally just be in the elevator the entire time. I still stand by this argument very strongly. I'll shamelessly admit I've committed myself to the hype of so many video games that did not turn out nearly as good as the trailers portray, and this includes some of the FNAF games. I don't understand the obsession with FNAF anymore, because most people are in it for the lore, right? At this point, but really though, do you think the story will ever end? You think you'll solve the puzzle? You think game theory will figure it out? No, FNAF craze will never end. And anyone who dislikes the game even a little bit has to forever live with the burden of FNAF taking over the gaming industry as one of the most popular indie games of all time. You can't escape it. Freddy's probably in your closet right now, or maybe Foxy... I don't know, but you know what I mean. FNAF will always be a part of gaming culture, even if a decade from now when it starts to collect dust, it will likely be an influence to future video games. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but let me tell you what is a bad thing. Five Nights at Freddy's has basically become a monopoly for milking out material, merchandise, and games. The characters are easy to recognize and can be put in parodies, sketches, spin-off games, t-shirts, water bottles, phones, phone cases, wallets, you get the idea. There's a movie coming out. A movie! Based on a video game. We all know how those tend to turn out. The only thing left to justify it is the diehard fans searching for more, trying to find secrets, forcing people to reach out to this intangible hidden answer that will solve it all. But if we're being totally honest here, this should have ended a long time ago. Scott could have taken a bow at the end of a trilogy, but no, the story must go on. Like I said, I've played all these games, and while they are not necessarily bad games, they've been noticeably declining over the last year. You can tell Scott puts a lot of effort into these games, and I can respect that. But I hope that this is actually the last game in the series. I probably won't play it personally, but it's very possible this might actually be a good game. It's just a shame it has to be a rehash of a game already made. You're essentially remastering a game made like a year ago. Kinda like remaking a movie when a really good one already exists. Regardless though, there's nothing my pointless rant can do to stop this. So, if you eagerly anticipate the new sister location game, don't let me stop you. I just hope that someday we can finally close the curtains on Five Nights at Freddy's. The trailer is pretty generic and cliched, still looks very cool considering we're talking about a FNAF game. A game that looks like this.